Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Rezac, and I'm the Associate Rector at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. It is the day before Halloween, and so to get us in that spooky kind of Halloween mood, I thought I would tell you a scary story from the Bible. Now, on Wednesday, you heard the story of the ghostly hand writing on the wall. Well, this story involves a witch and a ghost and summoning the dead. It comes from a book in the Hebrew Bible called 1 Samuel, and it's about a king named Saul. Now, King Saul tried to be a good king when he first came to power, but soon after he started acting in his own self-interest. King Saul had some good advisors, and his best advisor was a man named Samuel, a wise and learned judge who did his best to encourage Saul to act wisely, to love God, to care for his people. But then Samuel died, and things went from bad to worse. Without Samuel's good advice and guidance, Saul became an even more self-interested ruler. He made lots of laws. He got involved with lots of conflicts and violence. One law he made said that no one in his kingdom could tell fortunes. No one in his kingdom could try to see the future, and if anyone tried to contact a dead person, tried to summon a ghost or summon a spirit, that person would be expelled from the kingdom or even executed. Now, without advisors, without following God's guidance, without even fortune tellers, Saul was left without very many good advisors. He became involved in a war with a group of people called the Philistines. And this nation, the Philistines, were very powerful. On the night this story takes place, Saul's army is exhausted and tired, and they know that the next day they are going to have a battle with the Philistines, a mighty army. And they're not sure they can win. So at night in the tent, the soldiers were creeping around, and they were worried and terrified, worried that they were going to be killed the next day. And one soldier said to another, "I am so worried. The Philistines are so many. They have such powerful weapons. They have the advantage. What is King Saul going to do tomorrow?" His friend, another soldier, said, "No one knows what tomorrow is going to bring, especially since King Saul outlawed all fortune telling." The first soldier said, maybe we could find a crystal ball or some tarot cards." The second soldier said, "Shh, do you want to get us killed? The king outlawed all that stuff. We could get executed right here even before the Philistines attack." The first soldier said, I know, I'm just frightened. I don't know what to do." Now, while this conversation was happening in the king's tent, things weren't going much better. The king's most powerful advisor, a warrior named Abner, was explaining to the king just how serious the situation was. He said, "My lord king, the Philistines have us at their mercy. They are much more powerful than we are. I think tomorrow will be a disaster. I'm sorry, my lord, to tell you this." The king said, "It's not your fault, Abner. I couldn't ask for a better warrior than you. It's just God is withholding favor from me, the king." And Abner said, "But sire, I don't understand. You've followed God's law to the letter, it seems." King Saul says, "Well, I think I have, but I just don't know what's going on. If only Samuel were still alive. His death was the last straw. Abner, at this point, I'd almost be tempted to visit a witch myself just to speak to him again." Abner, get some sleep. There's nothing more we can do tonight. Abner crept out of the tent to leave Saul to his thoughts. And a servant who had been kind of sitting in the corner waiting on the king and Abner approached the king and said, "Sire, may I speak?" King Saul said, "Yes, fine, but no bad news, please." The servant said, "King Saul, would you really speak to Samuel if you could?" Saul said, "Of course I would. He was the mouthpiece of God. He gave me the best advice. He was so close to God, and God was so close to him, he could tell me what to do." The servant said, "My King Saul, if this is the true wish of your heart, I think I can help you. Come close, King. Let me tell you a secret." And he whispered in the king's ear and told him about a witch that still remained in the kingdom. The servant and King Saul disguised themselves. They crept out of the tent. They crept down the darkened path, through the wilderness, over rocky paths, through forests, to a secret place, a quiet place, where the witch's hut stood. And in the darkness, the servant crept up to the door and banged on it. "Wake up, wake up! I've brought you some business." The witch called from inside. She was afraid because of the king's laws. "Who is it?" The servant said, "It's me, your friend from court, the one who works with the king, the one who tipped you off when King Saul was arresting all of the fortune tellers." The witch said, "Okay, well, I guess I do owe you a favor. Come in, but who is that with you?" Saul, who had disguised himself, said, I am just a seeker of truth like yourself. I need the advice of a wise man who has passed on to the next life, to the astral plane." Now the witch knew that fortune tellers and witches were being arrested, and she said, What do you think I can do for you? I don't know what our friend has told you about me. You must know that the king has outlawed all witches and mediums and fortune tellers. Is this some kind of trap?" The servant said, No, he's serious. He really needs help. And the disguised King Saul says, "Listen, I vow that you will not be punished for helping me. Please, I really need to talk to someone." Now the witch felt sorry for him and said, "Well, all right, I want to help you. Whom shall I conjure up for you?" The king said, "Samuel. I need to talk to Samuel." Now the witch knew who Samuel was. He was famous, even among fortune tellers and mediums. So she began to sway, and she began to chant, and she began to go into a trance, when suddenly a ghostly light appeared, and a mist rose up from the ground, and it got very cold, and a figure appeared out of the shadows. And when that figure saw what was happening, realized that they had been summoned from the next life, that figure pointed straight at the king and said, "Saul!" Now the witch said, What is going on? "You did trick me. You're King Saul. Oh no, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get arrested?" But Samuel quieted the witch and said, "Why have you disturbed me, Saul?" The king said, Help me, Samuel. The Philistines are waging war against me. Their numbers are great. God has abandoned me, and God will no longer speak to me through prophets or through my dreams. I know it was wrong to summon you, but you are my last hope. Please tell me what to do." Samuel said, "Why are you asking me? If the Lord has become your enemy, what have I to say to you? He has taken your kingdom from you because you did not obey him. He will give you and your kingdom to the Philistines tomorrow." Saul was overcome with horror and cried out, "No, please!" Samuel said, "Saul, tomorrow you and your sons will be in the next world with me." Saul said, but I don't understand. I've followed the laws. I've banned witchcraft. Samuel said, "You can perform as many pious acts as you like, Saul, but you've missed the point entirely. You have separated yourself from God. You have followed your own wishes and schemes. You've had plenty of time to come humbly to the Lord for aid, but you've turned again and again to yourself and to the world for answers. And now you've even summoned the dead. You violated your own decree. Your enemies will become your executioners." Saul cried out, "No, the Philistines." Samuel said, "Yes, Saul. See you soon." And with that, the spirit dissolved back into the shadows. And the witch and the servant and the king looked at one another in horror because they knew what the spirit had said was true.